Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Under the dark night sky, in the village of Konoha, one large crimson nine-tailed fox could be seen rampaging, destroying buildings and whatnot. At this very moment, a large toad with a sword appeared, with a blonde man wearing white robes with the kanji for Yondaime Hokage on the back. This was the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato. Behind him laid two cradles, carrying his two daughters. Right below the toad, there stood four figures. One was a red-headed woman aka Uzumaki Kushina, wife of the fourth Hokage, sitting in a wheelchair after giving birth to a set of triplets. The next was a white-haired man, Jiraiya of the Sannin, then an old man, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage. Finally was a blonde woman, Senju Tsunade. In the hands of Kushina was a baby, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, the eldest of the three children of said redhead. Minato nodded at the people below as the toad leapt at the fox. The toad, Gamabunta said, "You sure, Minato?" The blonde nodded as the toad grabbed the fox, throwing her at the four people. As soon as the fox landed, Kushina sent a dozen chakra chains at the fox, binding the fox as she struggled to get free. Gamabunta then jumped and landed right beside the fox. Minato jumped down and held up his two daughters and placed them on two pedestals. He made a hand sign as he said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." 7 clones appeared as they spread out around the two babies. They drew seals on the ground as the seals connected. The original Minato focused onto the Kyuubi as he said, "Hake Fuin." The fox felt herself literally ripped into half as the Sharingan eyes in her own disappeared, its presence unknown to any of the people present. As the Kyuubi disappeared, the villagers and shinobi alike looked at the Hokage tower as the 5 people stood there. Minato raised his daughters up and said, "Villagers of Konoha, I present to you our new Jinchuriki. My daughters Uzumaki Namikaze Haruna and Uzumaki Namikaze Hikari. Konoha loved Jinchuriki as much as they do bloodlines, unlike some other villages." So, everyone cheered in joy as the Kyuubi was once kept back at bay. Time skip 6 years. One blonde boy with cerulean blue eyes was seen lying on his bed. This was Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, eldest and only son of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato and the aka Shi, Uzumaki Kushina. He was also known as the brother to the heroes of Konoha, Uzumaki Namikaze Hikari and Uzumaki Namikaze Haruna. While most would seem happy to be the son of 2 of the strongest shinobi in the world and the brother to the heroes of Konoha, Naruto was not. When he was 3, life was happy for the young blonde. His family treated him with care and love. His sisters always thought of their brother before anything else. But when he turned 5, everything changed. When the 3 siblings turned 5, their father decided to start shinobi training for Naruto's sisters. When Naruto asked to be trained, Minato and Kushina replied that they needed the training more as they had the Kyuubi in them. Being a good son and a loving brother, he was happy for his sisters and nodded. Over time, his family left him from any activities, even his godparents Jiraiya and Tsunade as well as his surrogate brother Hitaki Kakashi ignored him. So the blonde only stayed alone, sometimes going over to his best friends, Uchiha Tasuki and Uchiha Yuki's home as well as Hyuga Hinata's home. The 4 got along well. Minato, Fugaku and Hiyashi were on the same genin teams while their wives were on their own same teams as well. So the 4 knew each other. The 3 girls all had a crush on the blonde so they would always stick by him. Unknown to them, Hikari and Haruna had a crush on their brother too. But the attention given to them interfered and they left him out of everything. Of course when that started, they asked their parents about it but the 2 shinobi said they would train him when he was older. So our poor Naruto was alone, so he decided to take matters into hands. He snuck into his family's library and copied down any jutsu he could. The most useful was the Kage Bunshin. He even read about his family Kekkei Genkei from the Uzumaki clan, the ride gear and only he and his mother could only use it as his sisters had the Kyuubi in them. Several times, Naruto had shown his parents he could do the tree walking exercise he learned from the scrolls. He only received scoldings from his parents and left sad. So a few months back, he unlocked his Kekkei Genkai. His Kekkei Genkai was considered extremely rare even in his clan. He had the Faiz gear, something that only appeared once in a lifetime. Most of the Uzumaki could only get the Kaisha gear and 1 from 1,000 would get the Faiz gear. And that was only once in a lifetime. But from the times his parents berated him, plus his sisters stayed away from him, he told no one. From time to time, he would go into training ground 44, the forest of death to train at night. He was now Genin level and knew all E rank to C rank jutsu, which of course he showed no one. Now, the young blonde had finished his night training and was heading back home. The way back to the Nameka's compound went past the Hyuga and Uchiha compounds. And on that very night, an ambassador from Kumo came on a diplomacy mission and had kidnapped the Hyuga heiress, aka Hyuga Hinata, one of Naruto's best and only friends. Unfortunately and fortunately for the Kumo nin and Hinata respectively, Naruto saw the ninja and narrowed his eyes. He felt a pent-up rage from his family neglecting him and anger for this damn Kumo shinobi for even daring to kidnap one of only friends. So Naruto focused as photon lines appeared around his waist, forming a belt. He now had a phone in his right hand. He dialed 555 and pressed enter, as the phone said, standing by. The Kumo ninja heard the voice and snapped his head to the direction of the voice only to see Naruto raise his hand up saying, Henshin. Before he slammed his phone into the slot of the belt. The phone then announced, complete. More photon lines came from his belt as they wrapped around Naruto's body, forming the armor of Faiz. The Kumo bin asked, slightly frightened, who are you? Naruto now turned into Faiz with his eyes and photon lines on the body glowing, replied, Faiz, Kamen Rider Faiz. You tried to kidnap one of my only friends, you will pay. Naruto drew a hilt as a photon line came out, forming a blade. Naruto walked slowly towards the Kumo nun who was frozen in fear as Naruto releasing intent on par with the Kyuubi. As Naruto reached the Kumo ninja, he took Hinata off the man's shoulders and put her behind him on the ground. He then turned and slashed at the Kumo ninja. A huge gash appeared as the man dropped to his knees, dead. As Naruto kneeled down to check on Hinata, relieved that she was still alive, Hiashi, Minato, Hitomi, Kushina and a group of shinobi arrived. Hiashi glared at Faiz and growled, who are you? Get away from my daughter. Hiashi charged with a Juken strike but Naruto dodged it and jumped back. Looking one last time at Hinata before looking at Hiashi, Minato and Kushina who gasped at what she saw, Faiz said, you are all naive. He then vanished in a burst of speed. Imagine scene where Kamen Rider Spectre tells Ghost he is too naive before running away in high speed. It was only then did the ninja all notice the dead Kumo nin and saw that Hinata was safe. They all couldn't help but wonder who that mysterious guy was, all but Kushina. Now in the Hokage's office, Minato, Hiashi, Hitomi and Kushina were discussing who Faiz was. Minato said, that was your clan's Kekkei Genkai wasn't it, Kushi-chan? The redhead nodded. Hiashi then asked, but who? I mean Uzu was wiped out, and the last man to use the Faiz gear is dead. Kushina then said, there is someone I know. Hitomi asked, who is it? Minato caught on to his wife's thoughts and said, Naruto. Hiashi was slightly shocked, Naruto. But he hasn't even started his shinobi training yet, how can he defeat a genin, save a junin? Kushina looked slightly regretful, he must have been training himself, Minato and we were too focused on the girls, we forgot about Naruto. I regret all I've done. Last year, he showed me he mastered the tree walking exercise but we ignored him. Hinata who had woken up gasped, and glared at Kushina, that's why he was always sad when we met. You neglected him, how could you? Hitomi asked her daughter, what do you mean, Hinata-chan? Hinata looked at her mother and said, over the times when he came over to play, he wore a smile but in his eyes hid a lot of sadness and anger. It was like he was with friends and family but very lonely. Tasuki-chan and Yuki-chan know this as well. Naruto-kun once told us that you train Hikari-chan and Haruna-chan but totally ignore him. Hiyashi and Hitomi were now looking at Minato and Kushina in shock. Then Hiyashi said, I'm ashamed of you, Minato. You could have trained them together and gave him something to work on while you taught the girls of the Kyuubi, but no, you neglected him. But now, we need to summon Naruto to see if he is Faiz. Minato nodded. He then summoned Anbu and told them to bring his son to the office. With Naruto. Naruto had successfully got back to his room. He quickly showered and get into bed to avoid his parents from questioning him. But a moment later, an Anbu entered and said, Naruto-san, your parents want to see you in the office. Naruto cursed inside but nodded as he changed and left with the Anbu. After arriving via Shunshin in the Hokage office, Naruto asked, so what do you guys want? Hey Hinata-chan. He looked at Hinata when he said the last part as the girl smiled at him. Hiyashi flared his chakra a bit as a Hyuga branch member came in. Hiyashi looked at the man and said, Ko, bring Hinata back to the compound. Ko nodded and led Hinata out. Minato asked, Naruto, I want to ask, can you use your Kekkei Genkai? Do not lie. Hiyashi here can detect lies and you know that. Naruto cursed inside and nodded. Kushina then said, can you show us, Naru-chan? Naruto glared at his supposed mother but summoned the belt anyway. He dialed 555 on his phone. Standing by, he then said before inserting the phone into his belt, Henshin. He pushed the phone downwards as the phone announced, complete. He then donned the armor of Faiz. Hitomi gasped, so it really was you. Thank you for saving Hinata, Naruto. Naruto nodded and said, Hinata-chan is one of my best friends, I'd lay life for any of them. The four adults didn't know how to react to that but they were overall satisfied that the boy had such loyalty. Kushina then asked, but why didn't you tell us? Naruto merely looked at her with his yellow eyes, from the last time I showed you something, why would I? Minato said, I see. I'm sorry for how we treated you, Naruto. I hope we can start over. Naruto laughed, but it was cold, the laughter of air, not supposed to be heard in a child, that's why I say you are all naive. I learned to live in the forest of death for a month. I had my first during that month. You should know, one Junin goaded going into the forest just a few months ago, right? He mistook me for a spy of an enemy village and attacked me. I was lucky to have the Faiz gear and I got my first. You scolded me for mastering the tree walking at the age of 5, ignored me saying that you needed to train my sisters for the Kyuubi. When you said that, I was happy for them, but a few times I saw you training them, there was nothing relevant to controlling the Kyuubi that you taught them. That's when I started training myself. If there isn't anything else, I'll be in my room. Naruto then exploded into smoke. The adults were shocked. Here was a kid that could use the Kage Bunshin. Minato and Kushina were regretting the fact that they neglected their son but relieved he still loved his sisters. This was going to be hell for them. Now at the age of 9, Naruto, his sisters and the soon-to-be rookies entered the Ninja Academy. Over the years after the Kumo Hyuga incident, Naruto got closer with Hinata, Tasuki and Yuki after they found out Naruto had unlocked his Kekkei Genkai and saved Hinata. But Naruto also became distant from his parents, godparents and Kakashi. Naruto still cared for his sisters and the two girls would sometimes join their brother meeting the Hyuga and Uchiha heiresses. While many people ignored Hikari and Haruna's brother, that doesn't mean they ignored him. Though, as smart and as cool as the blonde writer was, he was still dense just like most of his alternate selves from alternate universes. Of course, this made most of the boys in class jealous of the blonde as the girls were the prettiest girls in the classes of the year. At the academy, Naruto always did barely enough to pass. With the written tests, he always did them correctly in patterns. For instance, the test has 10 questions. Naruto would do questions 1 to 5 correctly in Junin level answers but did the last 5 questions wrongly in idiotic answers. Sometimes, he would do the odd numbered questions correctly or only the even numbered questions correctly. Naruto did ace the practical parts though. Every target practice, he'd get a bull's eye, no matter the choice of weapon, kunai, shuriken, senbon etc. Every spar, he'd win flawlessly, and no one came close at ending his killing spree. When Iruka, who was assigned to be this class teacher for the next few years before they graduated at the age of 12, assuming they pass, brought this to Minato, the blonde Hokage was amused and confused at the same time. Flashback. Iruka was now seen in the Hokage office. Minato asked, "Iruka, what's wrong?" Iruka said, "Well, it's about Naruto." Minato asked, "He didn't do anything wrong, did he?" Iruka shook his head, "No, he's fine. But his exam grades, he does the bare minimum to pass. His practical tests are the best in class but his written ones always scored only half. And he does them in a pattern and the ones he gets right are in Junin level answers." Minato raised an eyebrow, "Could you let me see?" Iruka nodded as he took out a file with Naruto's grades and test papers. As Minato looked through them, some answers caught his attention as his eyes widened. The ones he got correct were high Junin level but the ones he got wrong were stupid. For example, one question wanted a Kekkei Genkei they knew and they could answer more than one. Naruto answered 10, Sharingan, Byakugan, Rinnegan, Mokuden, Shikuden, Maiden, Ride Gear, Hyoten, Shikatsumyaku and Yoden. All with a detailed explanation. The next question was so simple, but Naruto wrote an extremely idiotic answer. The question wanted the clans that created Konoha. Naruto wrote the Yuki clan and the Fuma clan. All in all, the way Naruto did the tests were so confusing, Minato had to call Shikaku to solve this. As Shikaku came in, he looked through Naruto's grades and tests. After 5 minutes, Shikaku said, "I think Naruto is hiding his skills so no one knows about them. But he also wanted to tell us something, which is what troubles me." Flashback end. What they didn't know was that Naruto was planning to leave on a training trip to all around the elemental nations. The ones he got wrong had the details of the places he was planning to go when he left at the end of the year, just when the holidays for the Ninja Academy would start and come back the year just before they graduated. Now, most would think why, Naruto would leave a note to the girls and one note for the adults, telling them that he would be with the group of his current class, and his parents knew he was more than ready as he hated before. But now, Naruto would stay there for the year. Now, the class was having a sparring session. One arrogant boy with a white puppy yelled, "I challenge Naruto." Iruka sighed and nodded, as he told the 2 boys to enter the ring. Hinata, Haruna, Hikari, Tasuki and Yuki were hoping Naruto would win while all of the boys wanted Naruto to lose. As Iruka swung his hand down and yelled, "Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto vs Inuzuka Kiba, Hajime." Kiba charged forward as he threw a fist, which was a good one by academy standards, but sloppy for Naruto. The blonde spun around Kiba and effortlessly dodged the punch and gave a backfist as he turned. Kiba stumbled across the ring as Naruto rushed at the Inuzuka. Naruto gave a feint straight punch and gave an uppercut as Kiba went to block the feint punch. The dog boy was sent flying upwards as Naruto jumped up, flipping Kiba so that his head faced the ground. They were at least 30 meters from the ground as Iruka and the other students looked in awe. Naruto said, "Yield, or you'll die in 5 seconds. Then they went down as Kiba's head was heading for the ground. Pun intended. Just before they touched the ground, Kiba yelled, "I yield." Kiba closed his eyes as the ground reached them. But the impact never came as Naruto pulled the boy up just a bit so that he wouldn't touch the ground. Naruto then released Kiba as he fell to the ground face first. Iruka snapped out of his shock and said, "Shosha, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto." Everyone was in shock, including the 5 girls with a crush on said blonde. Naruto proceeded to sit beside the girls as the other matches continued. At night, the family had dinner and as usual, Naruto hurriedly finished and washed his plates and utensils before heading to his room. Minato and Kushina wanted to mend the broken bridge with their son but had failed at almost every turn like how Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi had done. After they had finished their meal, Haruna and Hikari looked at each other and nodded. As they entered their brother Crush's room, the girls closed the door as Naruto discreetly activated the silencing seal placed by Minato in every room, which even the Hokage can't bypass without entering the room. Haruna opened her mouth to speak. Oni-chan, are you still mad at us and Ka-san and Tu-san? Naruto sighed. Haruna-chan, I'm not mad at you or Hikari-chan. They ignored and neglected me when we were 5, and would continue had I not revealed why someone saved Hinata-chan and had the Faiz gear. While I'm happy they focused on the both of you, I hated the fact they didn't make some time for me. Hikari then said, so, you're still mad at Kakashi ni, Jiraiya Jiji and Tsunade Bachan. Naruto nodded. Haruna then said, but they want to make up for the times they ignored you, why don't you give them a chance? Naruto sighed. You still don't know how to read other people from their eyes, Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan. When they try to make up the times they ignored me, I can always see that all they want is my Faiz gear. Your mother can only use Kaisha but at a weak level as she couldn't use it when Uzumaki Mito gave her the Kyuubi which is now inside of the both of you. Haruna and Hikari didn't say anything for a few minutes. Then the blonde girl said, Oni-chan, can we sleep with you tonight? Naruto replied hesitantly, Hikari and Haruna then did the one jutsu that would make men cave into any girl's requests, the puppy eyes no jutsu, which worked incredibly well as the two girls were already cute to begin with. Unable to withstand any more, the defenses of the blonde boy crumbled to ashes as he could only nod. The two girls then happily went to their rooms to change and went back to their brother's room. As the girls entered their brother's room, they failed to notice Jiraiya, Tsunade, Minato and Kushina watching the girls. Minato sighed. Looks like our daughter's crush for Naruto is increasing, as much as I don't mind that, I hope their crush would stop, but it only grew stronger. Kushina bonked her husband in the head. Minato-kun, how many times have I told you, they are free to do as they like. They are part Uzumaki and Namikaze, the two clans never minded to have relationships with siblings, so be more open-minded. Minato sighed and nodded. Both clans actually had nothing against having a relationship with their siblings, in fact, some even encouraged it. But if that actually happened with Naruto, he'd have to be put under the CRA due to the fact that his sisters would be in a relationship with him plus Minato and Kushina are not planning on having more children. Minato then said, well, as long as they don't go beyond the line, I guess I'm fine with that. Kushina, satisfied with her husband's answer, nodded. Tsunade then said, but let's not tell them that, we're not sure if they will have a relationship anyway. Jiraiya giggled perversely. Well, I hope they do, then Naruto would get a harem and they'd be a goldmine. Kushina glared at the toad Sanin, self-proclaimed pervert. Don't you dare use them for your books. I let it slide when you peeked on us during our honeymoon but I won't if you peek on my children. Minato blinked his eyes. Wait, you mean sensei peeked on you, Kushi-chan? Jiraiya was sweating. Kushina nodded as the Sanin paled. Minato said, you peeked on Kushi-chan. Dai-sensei. Jiraiya then started running as Minato threw Hiraishin Kunai at the Sanin as they ran around in circles and ending up with Jiraiya beat up on the floor. They then heard a deep voice announce, Dota 2 announcer, holy shit. The 4-cage level shinobi looked around. Tsunade asked, where did that voice came from? After that night, Hikari and Haruna would constantly sleep in Naruto's room with said blonde. Now, Naruto woke up and felt something heavy on him from both sides. He opened his eyes to see his two sisters hugging him with their hair on his chest. Naruto smiled as he looked at his sisters' peaceful faces. He thought, they look so cute sleeping like this. I did not just think that, it feels so wrong. To not disturb his beloved sisters, Naruto focused his chakra, and made one sealess cage bunshin and made a kawarimi with clone. During his training time in Training Ground 44, he had trained himself and managed to be able to make 10 sealess cage bunshin at once. Due to the Uzumaki humongous chakra capacity, he was able to make 100 cage bunshin at most. He had no doubt that if his sisters were to learn the jutsu, they could make thousands without difficulty. Anyway, Naruto went to the bathroom and brushed his teeth. As he did, the two sisters stirred. Hikari and Haruna greeted together, "Ahaya, Oni-chan." The clone smiled and greeted, "Ahaya, Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan, I'll inform the boss you're awake." The clone then poofed into smoke. Hikari and Haruna blinked as the smoke quickly dissipated. Hikari asked, "Oni-chan knows how to do the cage bunshin." Just then, Naruto came back into the room. The redhead asked, "Oni-chan, how do you know the cage bunshin?" Naruto smiled, "I learned from the clan library. Whenever everyone trained you, I snuck into the library and copied down as many jutsu as I could. In my scroll is 99% of the jutsu from the clan and public library. Please don't tell anyone." Hikari and Haruna nodded. Naruto then said, "Well, you should change, it's almost time for breakfast and if we're any longer, we'd be late for class." The girls nodded and quickly prepared themselves for school. As soon as they were done, the trio headed for the dining room to see Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi sitting there. As they entered, Naruto quickly put on his emo mask, which would only be taken off if he was with his friends, sisters or anyone else besides the 5 adults in front of them. Naruto sat down with his sisters and just grabbed a plate and started eating. Haruna and Hikari was surprised to see Kakashi and asked, "Kakashi-ni, what are you doing here?" Kakashi smiled and said, "Well, sensei invited for breakfast yesterday night so I came. I've also got a mission with Itachi and Shisui later." The girls nodded, as they started eating. Soon, Naruto finished and washed his plates as usual and said before going out, "Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan, I'll be waiting for you outside, K." The girls nodded with a smile as they quickened their eating pace. The adults said nothing at this, but Minato and Kushina were sad that their son still ignored them, not unlike how they used to do him, but relieved the boy still loved his sisters. Tsunade, Jiraiya and Kakashi felt that they would have to try harder to regain their relationship. As the girls left, Minato asked, "We totally screwed up with him. If we didn't neglect him, we wouldn't be like that." The 4 others nodded. Minato looked at the time, "Well, I've got a meeting now, I'll see you guys later." He then vanished in a flash as the others went to do their own stuff. As the girls came out of the compound, the 3 siblings proceeded to head to the academy. As they walked, the villagers smiled and waved at them, to which the girls waved and smiled back, though Naruto stayed silent and continued walking. As they walked, they saw 5 familiar figures. They walked towards them and greeted them, "Ahaya, Itachi-san, Hiyashi-sama, Yuki-chan, Tasuki-chan, Hinata-chan." They greeted back. Hiyashi then looked at his daughter, "Hinata, why don't you walk with them? I have a meeting soon." Hinata nodded as Hiyashi nodded to the rest and walked away. Itachi then looked at his sisters, "Well, Tasuki-chan, Yuki-chan, I'll let you walk with your friends then, I have a mission with Kakashi-senpai and Shisui anyway. Naruto, I trust you'll look after them." The Uchiha girls blushed and yelled at their brother as he shunshin away, "Oni-chan." Naruto shrugged, "Well, let's go then, we're going to be late if we don't move now." The girls nodded and quickened their pace. Soon, the 6 reached the academy. Most of the male students stared at them and glared at Naruto to be able to walk and converse with all 5 princesses of the class. The fact that it was obvious, to most of the school, that the 5 girls had a crush on the blonde rider didn't help matters either. Class started as usual, with Naruto thinking of how to leave the village at the end of the year, which was 4 months away, and thinking that what they were learning was just bullshit and should really work on practical stuff. Looking around, he saw that the class had a lot of fangirls swooning around one particular boy, Sasuke Uchiha, cousin and adoptive brother of Yuki and Tasuki. The boy's parents were dead from a mission and Fugaku and Makoto adopted and took care of him ever since. The boy was practically the opposite of Naruto. With his parents, Sasuke was a happy boy unlike Naruto who was emo when with them. Sasuke was an emo in front of the class while Naruto was more social with the class. And the fact that Sasuke had a crush on Haruna didn't help things. True, Naruto and Haruna were siblings, but it was a known fact that the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan didn't have anything with incest and sometimes actually encouraged this. That was what made Sasuke to dislike Naruto. So during recess, Naruto sat with the 5 princesses of the academy as usual, gaining jealous glares from the guys. Sasuke and Kiba nodded at each other as they walked up to their table and said loudly, "Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, we challenge you to a match at the sparring class later." The girls were tired of this and were about to tell off the 2 boys, but before they could, Naruto smirked and said, "Sure, I'll even make it as a 2-on-1 full-out match, without theing of course." Kiba and Sasuke smirked back on nodded. Iruka, who was sitting with teachers at the teacher's corner, sighed and rubbed his temples. Challenging someone was fine at the academy, but Naruto making it a full-out match meant a lot of paperwork and there was nothing to stop it as it was a rule and tradition. If the challengers issued a challenge, the opponent could change the rules from a normal sparring match to any other besidesing. A female chunin named Tsubaki smiled in sympathy and said, "Your class has a lot of problems, huh, Iruka-san?" Iruka could only nod as he was thinking of ways to tell the Hokage, Fugaku and Sume. Meanwhile, Tasuki, Yuki, Hinata, Haruna and Hikari were shocked that Naruto not only accepted the challenge but even made it a 2-on-1 handicap all-out match. Tasuki scolded the blonde boy, "Naruto-kun, why did you accept the challenge? We could have made them call it off." Yuki, Hinata, Haruna and Hikari nodded. Naruto sighed, "You know, I appreciate you girls worrying over me, but I beat a Junin from Kumo and have you ever seen me lose to either of them once or the matches against them ever lasts more than 15 seconds. I've never went all out against anyone in the academy. Chill, everything will be fine." Even as he said that, the girls couldn't help but worry over their favorite blonde as he could end up hurt. Oh, how wrong were they? After recess, everyone headed to the sparring area. Iruka sighed as when a challenge in the academy was issued, the whole school would watch. Most of the boys and Sasuke fangirls wanted to see Naruto get pawned while some wanted to see a good fight. Iruka said, "As you all heard during recess, Inuzuka Kiba and Uchiha Sasuke challenged Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto to a fight to which Naruto made it an all-out handicap 2-on-1 fight. So as the rules per se, their fight will go first. Will the 3 of you troublesome students get in the ring?" The 3 boys entered the ring as the Uchiha and Inuzuka went into their clan stance. Naruto merely stood there relaxed, occasionally flexing his wrist. Iruka swung his hand down as he said, "Handicap all-out challenge between Inuzuka Kiba and Uchiha Sasuke versus Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Hajime." Sasuke and Kiba charged with absolutely no teamwork planned, and Naruto was planning on using that against them. As Sasuke swung a right fist, Naruto jumped up and flipped behind Sasuke. Kiba at the same time gave a punch to the face, but Naruto simply tilted his head as the punch hit Sasuke's head. As Sasuke stumbled across the ring, Naruto had grabbed Kiba's arm and flung him around, slamming into the Uchiha as the both were flung away. Naruto then looked at Iruka. "Nay, Iruka-sensei, since this is an all-out match, jutsu, Kekkei Genkai are allowed, right?" Iruka nodded. Kiba and Sasuke heard this and did their jutsu. Suga, Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu. The spinning spike and fireball raced at the blonde boy, who just focused as his belt materialized on his waist as well as his phone in his hand. Quickly, he dialed 555 and pressed enter. Standing by. Then the spike and fireball hit. Everyone was shocked. Hinata, Haruna, Hikari, Tasuki and Yuki couldn't believe what they saw as fire burned the space Naruto was moments ago. They then heard, "Complete." The fire immediately dissipated and there stood Kamen Rider Faiz in all his glory. Naruto, as Faiz said, "Now, let's end this." He then blurred, only noticeable by Iruka and the Chunin sensei. Naruto appeared in front with his fist extended as Kiba and Sasuke were flung out of the ring. Iruka, slightly surprised, said, "Shosha, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto." The Chunin sensei all clapped as Naruto deformed. Even with the usage of Kekkei Genkai, Kiba and Sasuke were by no means slouches when it came to ninjutsu and taijutsu, and Naruto won by using taijutsu and the physical power-up from his Kekkei Genkai. They then heard a deep voice, godlike. Everyone looked for the direction of the voice Dota 2 Anusur, but couldn't find it. Iruka thought, "I'm gonna have to tell Hokage-sama about this." Now the challenge is over, other classes will go back to their class while we will continue our sparring class. Since last class was boys first, today we'll have girls first. Next match, Haruno Sakura vs Uzumaki Namikaze Haruna. The aforementioned girls then went into the ring and slid into their stances, Sakura the academy and Haruna her family's style. Iruka shouted, "Hajime." Sakura screeched, "If I defeat you, Sasuke-kun will see I'm the better choice." Then the pink fangirl charged. Haruna sighed, the fangirl fighting for the one she fawned over, typical. Haruna dodged the strike and spun around, hitting the Banshee's pressure points, causing the girl to crumble to the ground, and Iruka announced Haruna the winner. Sasuke, who recovered, thought, "She totally dominated the fight, she'll make a good wife, if only that blonde idiot wasn't here." Sasuke clenched his fists, thinking that most of the other fights were normal, with Hinata, Hikari, Tsuki and Yuki all winning their fights. After a couple of classes, they went home. Meanwhile, Iruka was talking with Minato. "Hokage-sama, today Sasuke and Kiba challenged Naruto to a match." Minato was not surprised. Sasuke had an obvious crush on his daughter whenever he invited Fugaku, who'd bring all of his children with him along with his wife. As for Kiba, well, he knew his daughters, Fugaku's daughters and Hiyashi's daughters all liked his son, and that may have made Kiba jealous. After all, the Inuzuka males were known to be territorial. Minato then asked, "And?" Iruka continued, "Naruto accepted and made it a 2-on-1 handicap match and totally dominated the fight. I'm curious as to why he still hides his abilities. He only used his Kekkei Genkai's physical traits and taijutsu, no ninjutsu or the special abilities granted by the Kekkei Genkai." Minato nodded. "I see, I'll ask Naruto about this then." Iruka nodded and bowed before leaving. At night, Minato invited Hiyashi and Fugaku's families over for dinner as well as let the children play, while Jiraiya and Tsunade went out for dinner together. After dinner, the three families were having a conversation. That ended when Minato asked, "Naruto, just now at the academy, Iruka told me Kiba and Sasuke challenged you to a match individually, but you made it a 2-on-1 match and won with only the physical upgrades from the Faiz gear and taijutsu. I want to know why you held back." Naruto looked at his father impassively. It wasn't required to use more than that to defeat them. Minato nodded, "But what I really want to know is why you held back purposely during all the tests. I've seen your records and you answered in Junin level answers, but the ones you got wrong had idiotic answers." Naruto said, "The one thing you actually taught me was that deception is a shinobi's greatest weapon. I'm only acting on what you taught me, to-san, ka-san." He spat out with venom. He then said, "If there isn't anything else, I'll be in my room." As Naruto walked, he looked at his sisters, Yuki, Tsuki and Hinata, who wanted to follow him. The look told them he wanted to be alone, and they went to Hikari and Haruna's shared room with Sasuke, and Itachi merely sat there with their parents. Fugaku looked at his eldest as Itachi caught the message that they wanted to talk about something important. Itachi then said, "Come on, Sasuke, let's go out and get some ice cream." Sasuke nodded as the adoptive brothers went out. After the children left, Hiyashi said, "Minato, Kushina, you need to stop favoring Hikari and Haruna." Kushina said, "But they have the QB in them, we need to teach them to be ready." Hitomi then said, "No, you could have taught them together. The both of you see yourselves in Hikari and Haruna, we all know that. But by giving your attention to them, you ignored Naruto. You need to stop this favoritism, it's tearing Naruto away from your family." Minato then said, "We'll think of something to solve this." Makoto said, "Then you'd better hurry. Naruto is getting more distant from what I saw just now, the hate in his eyes, it's growing." Kushina and Minato nodded. With Itachi and Sasuke, Itachi looked at his adoptive brother. "You had to challenge Naruto, did you? And don't give me any crappy excuses, I know you did it to impress Haruna, Sasuke." Sasuke looked at Itachi, but Itachi ni, Kiba told me that if we want someone to like us, we'd have to defeat the one they like and prove we're stronger. Itachi sighed, "That would only work if the girl and you are in Izuka. That's their ways. Outside, you need to look for other ways. You challenge Naruto suddenly would only give the girls the impression that you want to give the boy they like trouble and you'll only fail. Plus, you know as well as I do that the Hokage and Kushina Obaa ignored Naruto when he was little and made him what he is today. Naruto is actually a troubled person and you and Kiba challenging him would only make him more unstable." Sasuke nodded in defeat as they went to buy ice cream. With the girls, Haruna and Hikari sighed in frustration. Hikari said, "Tu-san and Ka-san always pressure Oni-chan about his skills, not once have they asked about his well-being. Oni-chan may be right." Tsuki asked, "What do you mean?" Haruna said, "One time we slept with Oni-chan, we asked him why he always pushed Tu-san, Ka-san, Jiraiya Jiji, Tsunade Bachan and Kakashi ni away. He told us that when he looked in their eyes, he saw that they only wanted his Faiz gear." Yuki nodded. "Come to think of it, they always had a gleam in their eyes like they want something from him when Tu-san and Ka-san mentioned Naruto-kun." Hinata then said, "Wait, you slept with Naruto-kun?" Hikari and Haruna nodded. "Yes, we'd sleep with him from time to time. We would have today but Tu-san and Ka-san ruined it." The girls grumbled the last part. Tsuki asked, "What do you mean?" Hikari sighed, "The look Oni-chan gave us meant he was going to stay in his room all night and he'd lock it, meaning no one can get in until he calms down. This happened a few times when Tu-san, Ka-san, Jiraiya Jiji and Tsunade Bachan asked him about his grades at school or something." The other girls nodded and they just sat in silence. With Naruto, the blonde rider was smirking. His plan was at its climax and he could not afford to fail. He had locked his door and started packing clothes, ramen cups in his emergency scroll and his jutsu scroll. He then unsealed a wooden puppet, made to look exactly just like him. After positioning the puppet in its place, he wrote a small note for his sisters, the Uchiha sisters and Hinata, placing it on the nightstand with the pencil holding it from flying away. After that, he opened the scroll about his Kekkei Genkei and found the page he wanted. He read, "To unlock the Excel form, which grants the user the ability to slow down time for 10 minutes, I altered the time from 10 seconds to 10 minutes, the SB555W Faiz Excel watch is required. The watch can sometimes already be in possession or you'd need to go into the mindscape and materialize it. This can be used in human and rider form alike. Rider mode, to use, slide the mission memory from the watch and into the phone, this will trigger the Excel form. Then, press the button on the watch to start up the time slowing ability. Human mode, just press the button on the watch to start up the ability, but the time limit is 1 minute as the human body cannot take the strain. Note: the watch needs to be materialized from the mindscape to be usable in human form." Smirking, Naruto transformed into Faiz and found the watch already in his wrist. He slid the mission memory into the phone as the chest plates folded up to his shoulders. The phone announced, "Complete." Naruto opened the window and sealed his scrolls into one scroll. Taking it, he looked at his room as he'll not be seeing this for the next 4 years. Naruto jumped out of the room and pressed the button on his watch. Start up. Naruto then ran at the speed of light passing the unsuspecting Chunins Izumo and Katetsu. Next morning, Hikari and Haruna went into their brother's room. They expected it to be locked but was surprisingly unlocked. Hikari and Haruna opened the door and moved to either side of the bed and shook what they thought was Naruto. "Wake up, Oni-chan." They turned the figure over and were shocked to see a puppet in place. Hikari screamed in surprise as Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya and Tsunade rushed in. Minato asked, "Hikari, what's wrong?" Haruna pointed at the puppet. Jiraiya asked, "What's a puppet doing here?" Tsunade noticed the piece of paper on the nightstand. "Look, there's a piece of paper there." Haruna, being the closest, took the paper as they all read. "To my dear sisters, Haruna-chan, Hikari-chan. If you're reading this, I've gone out of the village. I want to look around the world for the next 4 years, learn all kinds of things and clear my mind. I seriously can't take your father and mother as well as your godparents shit anymore. They never ask for my well-being and only ask about my abilities and skills. Don't worry, I'll be back after 4 years. And tell your father I'll join your class when I do come back. Help me tell Yuki-chan, Tasuki-chan and Hinata-chan. I love you girls. I do not own Naruto or Kamen Rider Faiz. And I think I'll be putting Naruto as Ryuga with Orphenic colors and without the gauntlet. Dragonlight Dragon 21. Yes, there are English dubs for Kamen Rider and Ultraman, which I won't recommend watching as the voice absolutely positively. Search for Kamen Rider Dragon Knight and you'll get Ryuki in English version, which is so bad it's actually decent. And Kamen Rider Forze is being dubbed by Singapore this year, which ruins the whole thing. As for I Am Burden, well, the idea just came to me, so I figured, why not write it down? I mean, I love crossovers and Faiz and Naruto just came to mind. As for Kyuga and Agito, I just don't know how to write them. Heck, the only ones I do know are Ryuki, Faiz, Kiva, Decade, W, U, Forze, Wizard, Gaim, Drive and Ghost. And as for Delta, no. He won't appear, for now anyway. No one fits the slot unless it's a girl. If you have ideas, review them. And if anyone is wondering about the early update, let's just say I'm having a holiday now, and I have time for fanfiction, DOTA 2, anime, Kamen Rider and watching Ultraman X. Plus, I recommend watching Asterisk, a new anime. X. Time skip 4 years. It's been 4 years since Naruto left. When news spread, the villagers were confused why the boy would leave. Kiba and Sasuke, who disliked the blonde, were happy he left and started to ask Hikari and Haruna for dates respectively and got turned down repeatedly. The relationship between the sisters and their parents and godparents got worse after one incident. Flashback 2 years. 2 years after Naruto left, Hikari and Haruna finally got the courage to ask their parents and godparents, "Did you really try to get close to Oni-chan because of his Faiz gear?" Minato and Kushina looked guilty and shook their heads. Just then, Hiashi, Fugaku and their wives arrived. Fugaku said, "No, you favored your daughters first because you thought Naruto had no talent. And when Naruto revealed Hida Junin when he was 5 and did the Kumo Nin to save Hiashi's eldest daughter, you immediately took interest in him, so don't tell me you didn't thought of that." Minato and Kushina stayed silent, but their eyes held the guilt and was not unnoticed by their daughters. Hikari and Haruna growled, "I can't believe you actually thought of that." The girls then went to their room locking the door. Flashback end. The girls still trained with their parents but the tension was there. Over the years, the 5 girls were known as the Ice Princesses as they were cold after Naruto left. True, the blonde would come back but they disliked the fact he left because of his parents neglecting them, and what's to say the blonde won't come back? That made them go cold, and the only thing that would relight the fire in their hearts is one Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. As for the adults, they were sure Naruto was still alive. Just last year, the bingo book from Iowa just came out. The page was about Kamen Rider Faiz, who almosted the Jinchuriki of the Yonbi, Han. This made the Tsuchikage made for almosting his brother and marked Faiz in the bingo book. Back to the girls, no one dared to insult Naruto ever since what happened to Kiba and Sasuke. Flashback. A year after Naruto left, Hinata had a new sister, Hanabi. At the academy, the 5 girls were happy for the Hyuga of the group, but that ended when one Uchiha Sasuke and Inuzuka Kiba came in. As usual, the both asked the sisters of Naruto for dates but got turned down. Sasuke couldn't take it and said, "It's because of that blonde idiot Naruto, isn't it? He turned traitor and left the village. You're better off with us than that traitor." Suddenly, the air turned cold. All 5 girls turned to look at the boys with cold eyes, more at Sasuke. Kiba gulped and said, "Bye." And he ran with high speeds. The girls let the dog boy go as he didn't cross the line, but Sasuke, not so much. The poor Uchiha got the beating of his life by his adoptive sisters and the 3 other girls. Every boy present vowed to never ever insult Naruto ever again after witnessing Sasuke being kicked in the groin. Flashback end. To Naruto, over the years, he got to Junin level. He unlocked the Auto Vajin and was currently riding the bike back to Konoha. The wind beat on his face as he enjoyed the relaxing ride. He had gotten training on Kenjutsu and a lot of other things. He even learned how to play the guitar and sing, which was how he earned a living. Anyway, he was looking forward to seeing his beloved sisters, the Uchiha sisters and Hinata again. He increased the speed of the bike and was racing down the road to Konoha. Soon, the walls of the village was seen and Naruto arrived at the gates. Stopping, he registered at the counter with Kotetsu and Izumo, who blinked seeing the name after Naruto went in. Izumo told his partner, "We need to tell Hokage-sama about this." The other nodded and he shunshin away to the Hokage's office. Meanwhile, Naruto was having a relaxing lunch at Ichiraku's when he noticed his sisters and the other girls enter the restaurant. As Naruto ate, Hinata, Tsuki, Yuki, Hikari and Haruna noticed something similar about the blonde guy wearing a black jacket beside them. Naruto finished his meal and looked at the girls smiling. "Well, it's been 4 years, hasn't it? You've all grown even more prettier than I remember." Hikari and Haruna recognized the voice and stuttered, "Oh, Oni-chan." Naruto smiled and said, "The one and only." Then he was tackled by the 5 girls. Several academy male students who walked by grumbled, "Damn lucky bastard." Naruto then said, "Well, I'm heading to the Hokage Tower to see our dear parents and get into your class, wanna come?" They all nodded as they headed for the tower. Hinata then asked, "Naruto-kun, how was your life the past 4 years?" Naruto smiled, "Never better. I got several bounties that'd last me for a few years without working. Plus I learned how to play the guitar and that helped too. I also gained several friends around the elemental nations, well, save Iwa of course." The girls were confused why he left out Iwa, but brushed it off as they reached the Hokage's office. The secretary nodded at Naruto's sisters and let them in. Minato and Kushina were talking with Jiraiya and Tsunade before they noticed the 6 enter. Minato said, "Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan, Hinata, Tsuki, Yuki. What can I do for yo? Is that you, Naruto?" Naruto nodded, but before he could say anything, Kushina tackled him with a hug. "Oh, Naru-chan. I'm so sorry how we treated you before. We really want to regain our relationship, please forgive us." Naruto pulled Kushina off of him and said, "We'll see how the next few years go. But first, To-san, I'm joining Hikari-chan and Haruna-chan's class. I'm sure you know I can handle it, right?" Minato nodded. Jiraiya then said, "Quite a name you made by almosting the Jinchuriki of the Yonbi, Han." Naruto nodded. Minato then said, "I also noticed you copied almost all of our clan library's jutsu, huh?" Everyone save Naruto's sisters looked at the blonde in shock. Minato continued, "I want to see how strong you really are to almost Han and got an A- rank in the bingo book." Naruto nodded, but he was smirking inside. "Maybe I can beat him up a little. Payback for neglecting me. Sure. Why not we do it now?" Minato nodded and said, "Fine by me. Go to the Chunin exam stadium later, and here's the letter for you entering the class. The girls will bring you there, I believe." The girls nodded. Minato looked back at his son. You'll be staying back at the compound, right? Naruto shrugged. Sure, some of my stuff is still there anyway. His parents sighed in relief. That was to be expected since their son was acting more social with them unlike before. Maybe the trip did help. Naruto then said, well, if there isn't anything else, I'll be going to put my stuff in my room now. The adults nodded. As the children left, Jiraiya said, well, that went well. Tsunade said, if I didn't know better, I'd say you hoped Naruto to blow up at us. Then a figure entered. Well, that was expected, since Minato and Kushina did ignore the boy. Minato said, that's harsh, Sandaime-sama. The retired Hokage chuckled, I'm not the Sandaime, not anymore. And it's the truth, be glad the boy actually tried to be civil with you people. Naruto could have blown up at you. Kushina sighed, true. After an hour, after Naruto and place his stuff in his room, he told the girls, well girls, I'm gonna do a concert here now, wanna watch? Tasuki asked, a concert? Naruto nodded and smiled, you've heard of Rider Chips, right? Hikari and Haruna nodded, yes. We're fans of that band. They are having a concert this week here. Though they always wear masks. Naruto smiled, well, I'm surprised you actually like my band that much. Quote, Yuki asked in shock, wait, you mean you are part of the Rider Chips? Naruto chuckled, nope, I am the band. You'd be surprised what Kage Bunshin can do. The girls were in shock now. The band they liked was actually the boy they liked, using Kage Bunshin to act as the other members. Naruto then asked, so, wanna come? The girls nodded furiously. Naruto took out his outfit and made 5 Kage Bunshin. They were in black jackets and wearing white shirts with the words, Rider Chips, on them. They then put on masks. If you're wondering, they're just Anbu masks with common rider faces of W, U, Forze, Wizard, Gaiman Drive. Quickly, they set up the stage in the middle of the village. A lot of villagers had gathered as they had heard of the famous band, Rider Chips, having a show here. As Naruto and the girls reached the stadium, they found most of the Shinobi Corps sitting in the audience area, academy students, Genin, Chunin, Junin, etc. The Yondaime Hokage was seen standing in the middle of the arena. Naruto smirked as he walked to the center of the arena as well. Minato said out loud for the audience to hear, ladies and gentlemen, today, my son has finally returned from his trip around the elemental nations. I'm sure a whole lot of you have heard of the man known as Kamen Rider Faiz, is actually my son using his Kekkei Genkai. Naruto groaned inwardly, he had hoped to keep this a secret. But the rice has turned to porridge, so he brushed it off. Mummers were heard as the Hokage announced this. Hinata then continued, as such, I'm going to test him, and if he is able to last against me for a minute, I'll let him join this year's graduation class. Since he is that age after all. Many mummers were heard in approval. Naruto thought, getting is he? A minute? Seriously? Never mind, I'll just play with him for a minute, I have my surprise after all. A man with a scene-on in his mouth and a bandana came to the center of the ring. I'm Shiranui Genma, I'll be the referee of the match, try not to get too beat up, kid. The man known as Genma said to Naruto. Naruto heard this and said nothing. He smirked, thinking, good, they're underestimating me. Genma then said, Yondaime-sama versus Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Hajime. Both stood there. Naruto smirked as he whipped out his phone and dialed 555 and pressed enter. Minato stood there as Naruto transformed. Naruto as Faiz said, Yano, To-san, you really should have done something when I transformed. Minato merely said, just to give you an edge first. Naruto smirked widely. Out of the blue the auto Vajin came in as Naruto grabbed the left handle, sliding the mission memory into the handle and pulled out a sword. Minato took out a Hiraishin kunai and stood in a defensive pose, which was loose. Naruto charged and soared his sword, blocked by Minato. Minato was impassive as Naruto only moved with Chunin speed. Stopping, Naruto said, why don't I take this up a notch? Naruto took the mission memory from the Faiz edge and placed it into his phone. The phone announced, complete. The chest plates folded up to Naruto's shoulders as he pressed the button on his watch, start up. Naruto then blurred, punching his father, pushing the older blonde across the arena. Minato thought, well, if it's speed you want, you'll get it. Minato threw a Hiraishin kunai into the air as he made hand signs and said, Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The single kunai turned to few dozens as they landed. Naruto, blurring, saw the action in slow motion and smirked. Good, time for the surprise. Naruto turned off the Excel form as Minato appeared in front of him, kunai in hand. Many thought Naruto was done, as Minato swung the kunai, only to hit air. Gardening. Naruto appeared behind Minato, just beside the Hiraishin kunai, and punched Minato, pushing him across the arena again. Everyone blinked. Naruto had just used the Hiraishin. Minato was surprised. So Naruto, you learned the Hiraishin. You had it in your scroll, huh? Naruto only nodded, but behind his mask, he was smirking. Up at the audience, Hikari, Haruna, Tasuki, Yuki, Hinata, Hiashi, Hitomi, Fugaku, Makoto, Sasuke, Itachi, Kakashi, Kushina and just about everyone had their jaw on the ground. Naruto could do the Hiraishin. Naruto smirked. Then he vanished and appeared beside Minato, who Hiraishin to the far end of the arena. Naruto placed the mission memory back into his sword, opened his phone and pressed enter. He Hiraishin beside Minato and swung his sword at a different direction to where Minato was. A beam of energy ran across the ground and Minato suddenly appeared in its path. Minato's eyes widened as the energy hit him, encasing him in an anti-gravity field. He tried everything he could to escape, Hiraishin, Kawarimi etc., but failed. Naruto suddenly appeared in front of him. Though he did not slash his father as it would the man, Naruto continued to punch the man in the stomach repeatedly, but not enough to render the man unconscious. Then, he gave a chakra-enhanced punch to the stomach in the face, rendering the man unconscious. Nobody cheered nor booed, they were shocked to the core. A boy who had only attended the academy for 2 years had defeated their strongest shinobi that used his strongest jutsu. Granted, the man didn't use the Rasengan, but still, defeating him was a feat, and Naruto did it before the 1-minute limit had finished and had beat the man in the stomach so many times. Genma was stunned. Naruto looked at him and yelled, "What are standing there for? The Hokage is unconscious and you're only standing there." Gemma shook out of his shock and called the medics, not before announcing Naruto the winner. Naruto shook his head and just went back to the compound to his room. As he laid in his room, Jiraiya came in with Kushina, Kakashi, Makoto, Hitomi, Hiashi, Hiruzen and Fugaku. Jiraiya said, "So, how in the hello did you learn the Hiraishin alone?" Naruto looked at his godfather impassively. "I studied seals from someone, deciphered the Hiraishin seals, and that was it. You guys need anything else?" Kushina was sad that she couldn't teach her son Fuinjutsu herself, but asked, "Who did you learn from?" Naruto said, "I learned them from Mito-sama." Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean? She's been dead for years." Naruto chuckled. "Yes, turns out your old teammate had DNAs of the Shadaime, Nadaime, Mito-sama and several others. I stole his notes on the Edo Tensei and the Shadaime, Nadaime and Mito-sama's DNA." Hiruzen asked, shocked. "You mean you used people to summon Mito-sama, Hashirama-sensei and Tobirama-sensei?" Naruto looked at the old man. "Of course not. I'm not so cruel, Sarutobi-sama. I used Kage Bunshin and supplied it with chakra constantly. And no, I only summoned Mito-sama." Hiruzen only nodded. Naruto then said, "Now if there's nothing else, please don't disturb me anymore. I'm tired from traveling and fighting just now." The adults nodded and left, besides Hiashi and Fugaku. Fugaku said, "Naruto, I know you're mad at them. So tell us, what's wrong?" Naruto sat up and said, "I gained A rank status at this age and they still underestimated me. True, I'm angry at them. But I want them to care for me, the way they only ask about my skills, it's like they only noticed me for them only, not because they care for me. I hate that. Hiyashi looked at his fellow clan head and sighed, I see. Give them time, Naruto. The night you left, they were sad. We told them how they neglected you and they were determined to change. They just need time. Naruto sighed and laid down again. Fine, please leave, I wanna rest. The clan heads nodded and left. Then, the girls came in. Hikari said, Oni-chan, that was so cool. You beat Two-san and you learned the Hiraishin, can you teach me? Haruna nodded as well. Naruto sat up and said, but Two-san would be more suited to teach you anyway. He still said the term with venom. Hikari and Haruna smiled, but we want you to teach us. Naruto smiled back, if you want, then I can teach you when we have time. The sisters nodded happily. The three siblings, Uchiha heiresses and the Hyuga heiress then chatted happily laying in Naruto's bed. Outside the window, one Uchiha Itachi and Sasuke looked at them. Itachi said, Sasuke, do you know why Naruto is that strong, so strong he defeated the Hokage? Sasuke grumbled, he learned the Hiraishin and had his Kekkei Genkai. Take that away and he's nothing. Itachi nodded, but so are you, without the Sharingan, the clan justice, you yourself would be nothing. What truly makes him strong, why our sisters, the Hyuga heiress, and his sisters love him, is his heart, the will to protect his precious people even if he himself is ignored because of them. You lack that, that's why Haruna doesn't like you and likes her brother instead. Anime and manga. Sasuke looked at his adoptive big brother, so if I was like that Haruna would like me. Itachi shook his head, I don't know. The mind of the females are strange that even I do not understand them. Sasuke said nothing as they looked on. With the adults, Hiyashi and Fugaku were berating Jiraiya, Kushina and Kakashi, I can't believe you guys. You said you'd change when he came back, but when he asked if there was anything else, he was giving you the chance to prove you'd change. But no, you still asked for his abilities when he wanted you to care for him. The three merely stayed silent, but they were scolding themselves when they realized they made a mistake again. Next day, Minato was up as he was only rendered unconscious with little damage aside from several ribs and the skull slightly cracked from the punches he received from Naruto. Minato sighed, guess his son still hasn't forgive him. But now, he got the paperwork for his son and was going home to give it to him. As Minato entered the compound, he found his son and daughters laying in Naruto's bed chatting about something he couldn't quite hear. He knocked the door and said, Naruto, here's the paperwork for the academy tomorrow. You did well, hope you didn't hurt yourself learning the Hiraishin as much as I did. I do not own Naruto or Kamen Rider Faiz. I have a few choices on Naruto's Orphenic form, Ryuki with the gauntlet replaced by flame designs, Daguva perfect form from Kuga, Ultimate Rising Kuga, Upudo Taira combo and Cho Dead Heat Drive. All of them of course have Orphenic colors. PM or review your choices, the most will be chosen, obviously. The deadline is before the chapter when the fight on the bridge during the wave arc begins. And if any of you are wondering, the awakening form is somewhere around the Chunin exams, before, during or after. Anyways, for those who enjoy my stories, well, enjoy. For those who don't, well, I don't think I have anything to say other than I'm sorry that it doesn't meet to your expectations. I'm also placing this story as my first priority. If any of you read my two other Naruto stories, the Garo crossover is next and the Gundam crossover is the last, so I'll most likely be updating this story, to Garo, back to this one and to the Gundam one, rotating like that. After the fight with Minato, if you can call it that, to me it was pretty much one-sided, not in the Hokage's favor of course. Hikari, Haruna, Yuki, Tasuki and Hinata chatted with the blonde happily. The next day when Minato recovered, the blonde rider received the entry papers for the academy. Well, actually it is re-entry, but never mind that. That night, Naruto's sisters slept with the blonde. Unfortunately for the boy, his sisters had started puberty, and the boy who was already quite mature, couldn't help but notice his sister's curves, the fact that they were pressing their chests, which had a quite large bust for the age of 12, onto his arms didn't quite help. Naruto scolded himself. Bad Naruto, even though the clan laws don't forbid this, it's still very wrong to think of my sisters like that. I have to clear my thoughts, focus on other stuff, ramen, the Faiz edge, auto vagin. All the while he was blushing like a tomato, and his sisters were actually awake, noticing their brother crush's expression and smiled to each other before tightening their grip, pulling him closer and placed their legs over the boy's, which caused a huge boner from the boy. So the poor boy could only do one thing, he fainted as he wasn't used to this. The two girls found that the boy had gone into blissful unconsciousness, merely giggled as they too went to sleep. In the dreams of the writer, though, was himself, his sisters, the Uchiha sisters, and the Hyuga heiress doing erotic stuff. Next day, the boy woke up to the same sight he saw last night. Sighing, Naruto made a discreet sealess cage bunshin and kawarimi with the clone, just as he had done in the past. Naruto then went to the bathroom and brushed his teeth as well as took a cold bath. After the cold bath, washing away his stray thoughts, he got changed as he re-entered the room. He nodded to the clone as it dispelled. Naruto then walked to his sisters as they stirred from the lack of the clone. Naruto gently shook the girls and said, "Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan, wake up, time for the academy." The girls sat up and rubbed their eyes groggily. Hikari and Haruna replied in unison, "Hi, Oni-chan." They then got up and went to change, bathe and brush their teeth, in whatever order. As soon as the girls were done, the three siblings went down as they saw their parents and godparents sat at the dining table having breakfast. The girls said, "Ahaya, Tu-san, Ka-san, Jiraiya Jiji, Tsunade Bachan." While Naruto said in his normal monotone voice, "Ahaya, Tu-sama, Ka-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama." The adults noticed the lack of venom when Naruto addressed his father, while the venom was still present when he addressed the others, which made Minato smile and the other adults to look slightly surprised, though inside they were shocked. As usual, Naruto finished his breakfast quickly and waited for his sisters outside. As soon as the three siblings exited the house, Kushina, Jiraiya and Tsunade snapped their heads towards Minato. "What the hell happened? Why did Naruto address you without the tone he usually used?" Minato scowled at them. "I heard from Hiashi and Fugaku how you guys still only care for his skills, not his well-being. All he wants is care from his family and he can determine whether it is genuine or fake. I saw it in his eyes when I gave him the paper for the academy. When I asked his well-being, he studied me for a brief second and determined I was genuine, which is true, and he actually smiled at me for the first time after all these years, even if it was only slightly. It was like he shut down everything within our presence and would only open them to his sisters when we are with them, and that is only slightly. He gave every one of us a chance. I took it while you guys threw it away. Hiashi and Fugaku told me when he asked if there was anything else, he gave you all a chance but you threw it away. I seriously don't know how you're gonna regain your relationships with him." With that said, the three adults hung their heads in shame and regret. With the three siblings, they bumped into Fugaku, Makoto, Hiashi and Hitomi with their daughters. Apparently Sasuke had a sleepover at Kiba's house and was going to school with the dog boy. Kiba and Sasuke are good friends and they share their dislike of Naruto. Well, since Sasuke didn't lose his parents, technically speaking, and is mentally intact. Fugaku and Hiashi nodded to Naruto, who nodded his head lower as a sign of respect before the adults left, which surprised the clan heads, wives and daughters. The Uchiha sisters and Hinata said nothing about it as they went to the academy with the Uzumaki Namikaze siblings. With the clan heads, Makoto asked her husband, "Fugaku-kun, what was that about?" Fugaku sighed tiredly. "Well, it seems Minato is the only one who actually went and asked for Naruto's well-being, and Naruto actually smiled at him, even if it was slightly." The women blinked their eyes. Hitomi asked in shock, "You mean Minato was the one who actually cared to do that?" They had all thought it was either Kushina or Tsunade before Minato. Hiashi nodded. We told Naruto he should give them time. Well, I just hope he'd give them one more chance, they seem to want to change. Fugaku nodded. Well, he accepted and maybe Minato's actions may have helped open him up a bit. The two couples then strolled along the streets aimlessly. With Naruto and the girls, they had reached the academy and the girls were happily leading the blonde boy to their class, with said boy getting jealousy-filled glares as he was with all 5 of the prettiest girls in the academy. As they reached the class, they found the class noisy as hell. Hikari got the attention of Iruka and Naruto gave the man the note about Naruto's entry or rather re-entry. Iruka nodded and smiled at the blonde, happy to see you again Naruto. Naruto nodded, likewise, Iruka-sensei. The Uchiha sisters, Hinata and Naruto's sisters then led Naruto to where they sat and sat with him. Soon, Sasuke and Kiba came in, followed by Sakura and Ino who were just following Sasuke like usual fangirls. The two noticed the blonde and walked up to him. Sasuke asked arrogantly, "Why the hell are you here, traitor? You left the village 4 years ago, you should have never come back." The two fangirls nodded in agreement as Kiba looked uncertain about that. Yuki and Tasuki looked angry as they heard their adoptive brother say that. Yuki said, "Sasuke, Naruto-kun was on a training trip. He traveled around the elemental nations by himself at the age of 9 and survived, none of us could have done that." Sasuke replied, "Yuki nay, he must have had help. No way he of all people could survive outside for 4 years, heck, I don't even know if he has the Hokage's approval of leaving the village." Tasuki was about to join in scolding her brother when Naruto said, "That's because I didn't. Why did Junin when I was 5 and another when I was 6? One from our village who mistaken me for a spy in the training grounds and the other the Kumo Nin for kidnapping Hinata-chan. And I'm sure you heard from the Hokage himself, I hold A rank status, know the Hiraishin and a few dozen other stuff. I could have been like your older brother, Sasuke, the difference is whether the Hokage would approve it or not. But I still entered the academy and went through all the trouble of revealing I had the Hiraishin so I can be in this year's graduating class. Plus, I left as a civilian, not an active shinobi, therefore I'm not a traitor or anything related to that." That shut Sasuke's mouth as Naruto had pointed out every valid point, the intent Naruto gave also hinted that he should not say another word. The Uchiha merely hmphed and sat at his place with Kiba, Sakura and Ino. The whole class was looking at Naruto in awe now. They remembered the fight the blonde had with his father which was one-sided and in the younger blonde's favor, ing 2 Junin at the age of 5 and 6 was a plus. And with the key Naruto displayed just now, they swore to never piss the boy off. The class continued normally, that is until sparring class. Naruto looked at every student and found that Kiba and Sasuke were still the strongest aside from himself. So the blonde said out loud, "Iruka-sensei, I challenge Sasuke and Kiba on a 2-on-1 handicap match, all out with outing." The class looked at the boy in shock as Iruka could only nod. There was another reason Naruto did that though, he saw the two boys staring at his sisters and wanted to play the overprotective brother. As the 3 boys entered the ring, Sasuke and Kiba looked confident that they could win while Naruto was impassive. Iruka swung his hand down and said, "Hajime." Naruto reached his hand out as the Auto Vajin came beside him. He slid the mission memory into the sword as it said, "Ready." Naruto then pulled the sword that was disguised as the left handle of the bike out. Kiba and Sasuke reacted by pulling out kunais and slid into a defensive stance. Naruto smirked as he materialized the SB555W Faiz Excel watch onto his hand. He pressed the button as it said, "Start up." Then all the students saw was a blur of yellow and black going around the ring passing the 2 other boys, a bruise or cut appearing every time the blur passed. After exactly 55 seconds, the watch announced, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. Then, the blur turned into Naruto. By now, Sasuke and Kiba were exhausted. Naruto walked over to them and just hit them with the hilt of the Faiz edge as they fell backwards unconscious. Iruka just announced, Shosha, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Sakura was the first to react, he cheated. Sasuke-kun didn't even move and Naruto Baka beat him. Tasuki looked at the Pinkett in shock, you do know a shinobi is supposed to fight dirty, right? Sakura looked at the Uchiha heiress in shock, but he beat up your brother. Yuki nodded, true, but sometimes people lose, not everyone is invincible, godlike yes, but not invincible for eternity, soon they might get old or someone might surpass them. And Sasuke needed a wake-up call anyways. Sakura just grumbled and looked away. Naruto, who walked back to the girls, was congratulated by them for beating two opponents at once. Hinata then asked, Naruto-kun, can you help train me to be strong like that? Yuki, Tasuki, Haruna and Hikari piped in together, me too. Naruto chuckled and said, okay, if you girls want. Today was another normal day at the academy. The heiresses and Naruto were sitting at their usual spot. None of the boys ever dared to challenge Naruto ever since he defeated Kiba and Sasuke single-handed. While the boys still disliked the blonde, they respected him for his strength, save Kiba and Sasuke. Now having recess, Sakura, who was very full of herself, always having fantasies about Sasuke and her being prince and princess respectively and Sasuke saving her etc., walked over to Naruto in the heiress's usual spot. The pink banshee, like her bitch of a mother, always liked to go after people with high status, and because Mebuki failed to get Minato, the pink whore hated Kushina and her children and by a certain extent, Minato. Sakura screeched, Haruna Baka, I challenge you to a duel. If I beat you, Sasuke-kun will notice me. Everyone looked at the Pinkett like she was crazy. The heiresses were the strongest kunoichi in the academy and they can only be beaten by one of themselves. As for Sakura, she was only book smarts, which made her think she was the top of everything. Her parents spoiling her rotten also didn't help. She absolutely ed at taijutsu, ninjutsu and weapon training. She had low chakra reserves even for an academy students. It was surprising how she can actually live with that amount of chakra. Haruna was impassive and just said, okay. Everyone present just sighed and shook their heads. The pink banshee was getting it. Even Ino wasn't brave enough to challenge the redhead. Recess continued as Naruto ate in silence. He was trying not to stare at the girls as they had all hit puberty and adding in the natural Namikaze, Hyuga and Uchiha genetics, their growth was advanced compared to the girls their age. Unfortunately for the boy, all of the girls noticed this and smiled to each other. This was unnoticed by the blonde as he kept his head down eating. Recess was over as the class went to the sparring area. The girls went first and all got to fight. Fangirls won. When it was Haruna and Sakura's fight, the two girls stepped into the ring. Iruka sighed and said, Uzumaki Namikaze Haruna vs Haruna Ura, Sakura, Hajime. The Ura part was said by Kiba loud enough that everyone heard it clearly, causing laughs and the embarrassment of the Banshee, who turned red-faced and glared at the Inuzuka. Of course, this gave Haruna the chance to rush in and gave the Pinkett a punch to the gut so hard spit came out. The Banshee was flung upwards as Haruna focused chakra into her legs and jumped up. The girls were around 7 meters from the ground as Haruna flipped Sakura upside down and went down. Though the impact didn't hit the head, it hit the back of the pink banshee and knocked her unconscious. Everyone recognized the move as it was only used by Naruto. Iruka sighed and said, even though unnecessary, Shosha, Uzumaki Namikaze Haruna. After the other girls matched and a few boys matches, it was Naruto's turn. Iruka said, Tendo Soji vs Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Hajime. Naruto just ran forward and gave a chakra-enhanced punch to the boy. Naruto suddenly appeared in front of the boy and gave rapid punches before palming Soji's neck. Soji stumbled and regained balance and threw a punch. Naruto dodged this and jumped behind the boy. Naruto hooked Soji's legs with his own and pushed the boy down as he fell down, so hard he was knocked out. Iruka sighed and said, Shosha, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Seriously, I wanna know how you never lose, Naruto. Naruto looked in his sensei and said, Oba-chan ga ita, hitobito wa boken o sujitsuyuku naru. I translated Kamen Rider Kabuto's quote, so I don't really know if it's correct. People get stronger through adventures, Iruka merely nodded as Naruto did travel around the world for 4 years. When the fight started, Hikari asked the other girls, so, you girls wanna come over for a sleepover tonight? They nodded. Tasuki then said, maybe we can tease Naruto-kun a bit. The girls all smirked evilly. Naruto was damn lucky that he was going through this kind of hell. When the academy was over, Naruto and the heiresses walked together. Yuki, Tasuki and Hinata told the 3 siblings, well, we'll see you guys later. When they reached home, Hikari told Kushina, Ka-san, I invited Yuki-chan, Tasuki-chan and Hinata-chan over for the night, is it okay? Kushina smiled at her daughter, sure, I was going to invite their parents anyway. Haruna smiled, Arigato, Ka-san. As Naruto got changed, he decided to teach his sisters the Hiraishin. He went to their room and nearly got a rocket nosebleed. As he opened the door, he found his sisters in their undergarments as they were just about to change. Blushing so hard, Naruto quickly ran back to his room and buried his head into the pillows. He kept thinking, don't think about that. Think about ramen, 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 ramen. After calming down, Naruto got back up and found his sisters coming out of their room. Still blushing slightly, Naruto asked, Hikari-chan, Haruna-chan, you wanna learn the Hiraishin now? The girls were confused at their brother Crush's blush but nodded anyway. They then headed for the compound training ground. Naruto whipped out several kunai with the Hiraishin seal on it. Naruto said, although Tu-san uses custom-made kunai, it's actually better to use normal ones. Your enemies won't know where you can appear if you throw the normal kunai with and without the Hiraishin seal. So, let's get started. Naruto took out a piece of paper and drew the Hiraishin seal on it. Now, from what I learned from Mito-bachan, the seals all play a role in the jutsu. The jutsu shiki for mine is different from Tu-san and Nadaime-sama. Now, I'm gonna need your blood so I can make your jutsu shiki. Afterwards, Naruto taught his sisters how to use the jutsu for battle. The girls learned the jutsu but were far from mastering it. It was evening, the Hyuga and Uchiha head families had come into the Namikaze compound. After dinner, the clan heads and their wives chatted for a while before Fugaku, Makoto, Hiashi, Hitomi, Sasuke and Itachi left. As soon as they left, Yuki, Tasuki and Hinata got changed into their sleeping attires, which were dresses that showed their figure. The adults smiled in amusement when they saw Naruto trying not to stare as he was turning into a teenager. Soon, it was time to sleep. Naruto was fast asleep in his bed when he felt several weights on him. He opened his eyes and found the heiresses all sleeping beside him and hugging him. Then Minato came in. The man smiled amusingly when he found his son surrounded by the girls. Minato chuckled and said softly so only Naruto can hear, well, I'll leave you alone with girls. I trust you won't do anything to them, or even I can't save you from their fathers. Then the Hokage left as Naruto cursed his father for leaving him in such a position, and proceeded to sleep. Not for long, Naruto woke and found himself in a sewer. He thought, where is this? He continued walking and found a huge cage in front of him. Then he heard his sister's voices, Oni-chan. Where are we? Naruto turned and found Hikari and Haruna. A soft voice replied, you're all here, good. As for your question, we are in the shared mindscape of Hikari and Haruna. From behind the cage, a girl their age with crimson hair walked forward. She had 2 orange fox ears and 9 orange tails. She wore a kimono with flame designs on it. Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, Kyuubi. He whipped out his phone and materialized his belt, which suddenly vanished before he could transform. The Kyuubi smiled and said, none of that. I'm not fighting. I just want to meet you 3. Especially you, Naruto-kun. Kyubi slipped through the bars and hugged Naruto from behind, dragging his name as she said it. Naruto, still not used to female contact, blushed when the Kyubi hugged him. Hikari and Haruna yelled as they saw this, "Get away from Oni-chan." Kyubi smiled and let go as she went back to the bars. Kyubi then said, "Fine, but you should know, I didn't intentionally attack Konoha. Ask your mother, we were on good terms. I hope we won't have any trouble trying to get along, especially you, Naruto-kun." The sisters glared at the Kyubi as she said that. They knew if they were to have a relationship with their brother, they'd need to share as Naruto would be put under the CRA. Naruto then asked, "Then why did you attack Konoha?" Kyubi smiled sadly, "I was ripped from your mother's seal. An Uchiha, a Rouge One ripped me from the seal and cast a genjutsu on me. That's why I attacked. Anyway, I hope we can get along in the future and I'm opening a link to you, Haruna-chan, Hikari-chan. And if you're wondering why I'm one being, you two were always close so my yin and yang parts soon merged together. Now, I guess I should let you sleep. Bye." The year passed quickly. Naruto got closer to the heiresses and was still disliked by the majority of boys, save Shikamaru, Choji and Shino, who thought it was too troublesome, too focused on food to bother and found nothing worth the trouble to always be in a bad mood, respectively. Over the year, Naruto also developed a crush on Hikari, Haruna, Yuki, Tasuki, Hinata and the Kyubi, whom the three siblings found out her name to be Kasumi. If you want Kyubi's appearance, think DOA Kasumi with fox ears and 9 tails. And Naruto was still crept out by the fact he had a crush on his sisters. Of course the boy didn't know he could actually be with all of them, as Konoha didn't object to threesomes, and if Naruto had relationships with the both of his sisters, he'd be placed under the CRA and could have a glorified harem. The graduation day was tomorrow, and tonight, the two sisters were planning to confess to their beloved brother. Over the year, Naruto's relationship with his mother and godparents improved like Minato. He now smiled more with them, but still kept a distance. As for his father, you could say they now had a normal father-son relationship. The younger blonde opened up more to his father now, as he now know his father actually cares for him. After dinner, Minato told Naruto to follow him to his study. Minato sat in his chair as he activated the silencing seals. Minato motioned his son to sit as the boy did so. Seeing the serious yet expressionless face on his father, Naruto couldn't help but get nervous. "To-san, is something wrong?" Minato said, "I wanna know, do you have a crush on Hikari, Haruna, Yuki, Tasuki and Hinata?" This surprised Naruto and he quickly thought of something to deny it. Minato then said, "If you're thinking of making up lies, you're 2 million years early. So spill." Naruto nodded. Minato then brightened up. "Okay, since our clan doesn't forbid this kind of stuff, go for it. If you can get both of your sisters, you'll be put under the CRA and can be with the other 3 girls." Naruto was shocked. "Wait, what? But that's just so wrong." Minato laughed. "Under normal circumstances, yes, but is our clan normal? No. So it's fine, and it'll help repopulate our clan faster and give me and Kushi-chan more grandchildren to spoil anyway. Adding in the fact with you, my son, I won't have to play the overprotective father. Plus I think your sisters and the 3 girls all have a crush on you as well." Naruto was dumbfounded. "Well, it isn't every day your father encourages you to go after not one but all 2 of your sisters and put under the CRA and get a glorified harem. Plus, said father tells you the girls you like also like you, who wouldn't be shocked?" Meanwhile, the sisters were having something similar with their mother and godparents. Jiraiya asked as soon as Naruto and Minato went in, "So, do the both of you have a crush on our little Faiz there?" Haruna and Hikari blushed. Tsunade laughed. "Well, with the blushes on their faces, it's a yes." Kushina smiled. "Well, I'm actually fine with you two going for him, plus it'll put him under the CRA and help populate our clan." Jiraiya chuckled perversely. "I feel a new book coming up, The Trials of Apollo, a good name, he he he. Tsunade grew a tick mark on her head and punched the man, throwing him away. Damn pervert. Tsunade then asked, "So, when are you telling him?" Hikari said shyly, "Well, we were planning on telling him tonight, but we don't know how he'll react." Kushina smiled, "Well, we think he has crushes on you too, Hinata, Yuki and Tasuki. Mina-kun is talking to him about this now, and if I know him, he'll encourage him to go after you. So you should go for it. I know all of you have agreed to share him." This caused the sisters to blush. One sleep over, the girls decided if it worked out, they would share Naruto. Of course, they'd need one of them to have a relationship with the blonde first. Tsunade then said, "Well, we should stop teasing them now. Minato should be about done with Naruto and it's quite late already. I believe you will be sleeping with Naruto, right?" Quote. The girls nodded as the adults smiled and said, "Well, good luck then." They then went to their rooms. Hikari and Haruna also smiled and went to change, before going into Naruto's room to wait for him. With Naruto, he had just finished his talk with his father and was heading to his room. He opened the room and found his sister sitting on his bed waiting for him. Hikari saw him and said, "Oni-chan, we wanna tell you something." Haruna nodded. Naruto said, "Okay, what is it?" Haruna and Hikari looked shy as they said, "Oni-chan, how do you feel about us? Do you like us?" Naruto said, "Of course I love you." Hikari and Haruna then continued, "I know you love us as sisters, but we love you not as a brother, we love you as a guy." Naruto didn't really know how to react, so he said, "Me too." But now, let's just SLE, he was cut off when Hikari pulled him into a kiss. Naruto's eyes widened before he kissed back. As soon as they finished, Haruna pouted, "What about me, Oni-chan?" Naruto smiled and kissed the girl. After that, they went to sleep. Next day, Naruto, Hikari and Haruna got up and went to have breakfast together. The adults noticed them and smiled. The way they walked with each other was a sign good enough to tell them they had worked it out. They smiled at the three as they quickly ate breakfast since today was graduation day. When the three siblings left, Hikari told Naruto, "So Oni-chan, now we're together, you're under the CRA, you know that right?" Naruto nodded. Haruna then said, "So, are you going to tell Yuki-chan, Tasuki-chan and Hinata-chan, or are we gonna tell them?" Naruto said, "You girls tell them, it'll make me look like a pervert or something and they might dislike me for that." Haruna and Hikari shook their heads and nodded. As they reached the academy, they found said girls sitting at their usual spots. They greeted, "Oiheo, Hinata-chan, Yuki-chan, Tasuki-chan." They greeted back, "Ahaya, Haruna-chan, Hikari-chan, Naruto-kun. You ready for today?" The siblings gave a smile and said in unison, "Of course." Soon, the test started. The heiresses and Naruto went through the test easily. After that, it was the weapon part. Naruto got 10 out of 10 for everything, and the girls besides Hinata all got 10 out of 10 for almost everything, while said Hyuga got 10 out of 10. Then when it came to taijutsu, they were to land a hit on Iruka within 5 minutes. Naruto and the girls all done it in less than 3 minutes, while most others got less than 4 minutes. Finally, the jutsu part. The basic 3 jutsu was done, except for the 3 Uchiha, and 3 Uzumaki Namikaze siblings. Sasuke, Yuki and Tasuki did the Kaden Gokaku no Jutsu, with Yuki and Suki's larger and on par with each other, but larger than Sasuke's. The Uzumaki Namikaze siblings also did one same jutsu, the Hiraishin. The siblings each scattered kunai and Hiraishin around several times. The 6 shocking Iruka with such advanced jutsu. After that, everyone in the class received their headbands, which meant no one failed. After a moment, Iruka went out and gave the Hokage the list of past students. After using Kage Bunshin to sort the other classes' graduating students, with 3 clones for one class, Minato gave Iruka and the other Chunin sensei the list of teams. Iruka re-entered the class and said, Now, congratulations. I will now announce your teams. Team 1. Team 7, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, Haruna and Hikari. Sensei is Namikaze Kushina. Team 8, Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino and Kurama Yakumo. Since her class lacked numbers, Sensei is Yuhi Kurenai. Team 9 is still active. Team 10, Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru and Akamichi Choji. Sensei is Sarutobi Asuma. Team 11, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Sai from another class is the lack of numbers. Finally, Team 12, Hyuga Hinata, Uchiha Tasuki and Uchiha Yuki. Sensei is Uchiha Makoto. That's all. Meet your sensei tomorrow here. You're free to go now. Uruka then walked out of the room as the students went out. Hikari then told the three other heiresses, you know, Oni-chan is now under the CRA as he has a relationship with us now. So, you girls should tell him how you feel. The three nodded and went to Naruto. Yuki approached the boy and said, Naruto-kun, you are under the CRA now, right? Naruto nodded. Tasuki and Hinata then said, well, the three of us liked you when we were little, and we want to be with you in the CRA. After the girls' confessions, Naruto and his sisters went home. The three siblings' lovers were planning to ask their mother about being their sensei like the Uchiha heiresses with their mother. As the siblings went in, they found their parents and godparents sitting on the sofa. Minato said, now, I know you must be wondering why I put your mother as your team sensei. He got nods from his children. Jiraiya said, you should know that your mother, Hitomi and Makoto were known as the female version of the Sannin, aka Sanshibo Kunoichi, literally three-death Kunoichi. They were actually planning on taking teams and work together as one big team, which is possible depending on the Junin, but due to Hinata's sister being born, only Kushina and Makoto could. And, Kushina and Makoto like all other Junin could request specific genin, and they chose you guys, plus there wasn't any other Junin requesting for you, so you got her as your sensei. And since we're living together, we might as well tell you, if Minato is okay with it. Minato nodded as Kushina took over. See, the test at the academy was just to see if you had what it takes to become a ninja. But it does not make you one. You will be given a separate test that would determine if you can become shinobi. Mostly you'd just get a test for teamwork, but you've been training together for so long with each other, Makoto and I have decided to just test your skills. No doubt Makoto is telling her daughters this now. So I advise you three rest up. Just because I'm your mother doesn't mean I'll go easy on you, capiche? The three siblings saw the dark, creepy expression on their mother as she said that and nodded furiously before speeding back into Naruto's room to rest before coming out to have dinner. Next day, Naruto, his sisters, the Uchiha heiresses, Hinata and pretty much every genin hopefuls were sitting in their class, waiting for their sensei. Outside the academy, Kakashi was talking with his sensei's wife, whom he looked up to like a sister, and Makoto, Kushina-ne, Makoto-sama, you really want to mess with them, don't you? Kushina glared at her younger brother figure, like you're one to talk. Always getting lost on the road of life, and I'm saying that when we go in later, got it? Kakashi chuckled at the redhead's childishness, whatever you say, I seriously don't know how sensei puts up with you. He mumbled the last part but was heard. Kushina turned her head slowly towards the Cyclops, eyes glowing white as the temperature dropped. What did you just say, Kakashi? Kakashi sweated. Nothing, Kushina-ne, I'll see you later. Before he could run, Kushina grabbed his collar and gave him a beat down. Makoto just shook her head at the two. Back with the teams, after 5 minutes, every team was picked out by their sensei respectively, well, save Team 7, Team 11 and Team 12. Naruto, Hikari, Haruna, Tasuki, Yuki, Hinata, Sasuke, Sakura and Sai were sitting there irritated. Well, Sai was just smiling. Sakura was screeching, where are they? Naruto, Hikari, Haruna, Tasuki and Yuki sighed. Haruna glared at the Banshee. Haruno, if you don't stop this instance, I'll you. Sakura just glared back and huffed, staying quiet anyway. Sasuke was smiling seeing the girl putting down the fangirl. He thought, she'll make a good wife. All I need to do is make her forget the idiot. Like that'll happen. If the sun rises from the north and pigs fly. So they waited, and waited, and waited, and waited, for an hour now. Finally, the door slid open as 3 people came in. Sakura yelled, "You're late." Kushina smiled and said, "Well, we all got lost on the road of life." At that, Naruto, Hikari, Haruna, Tsuki, Yuki and Hinata slammed their heads on the table they were sitting by, one by one. Anime and manga. Makoto only shook her head at them. Kakashi then said, "Anyway, Team 11, with me." Said team got up and followed the man out. Kushina said, "So, you girls and guy will follow us to training ground 7, I'm sure Makoto told you about the joint team thing." She looked at Yuki, Tsuki and Hinata at the last part as they nodded. Makoto looked at her friend and said, "Well, see you at training ground 7 then." The 2 female Junin then vanished via Shunshin. Naruto shook his head and said, "Everyone, come closer and put a hand on me please." The girls nodded and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulders or chest as Naruto did several hand signs, Hiraishin no Jutsu. Suddenly, the girls all found themselves in training ground 7 in front of their sensei, mother. Naruto breathed heavily for a while as he had used up a good amount of chakra to transport them, but the chakra returned after he took a chakra pill. Kushina looked impressed. "Wow, Naru-chan, you managed to use the Hiraishin to transport everyone here. Mina-kun needed 3 years to learn that." Naruto said nothing and nodded. Makoto then said, "Now that you're all here, I want all of you to fight us at the same time. So it's basically the 6 of you versus the 2 of us." "Got it." The soon-to-be genin nodded as they knew their mother, sensei were all strong kunoichi and were not to be taken lightly. Kushina then said, "And if any of you are unconscious, you will all go back to the academy, think of it as a test since Mina-kun insisted." The genin all nodded. Then Makoto said, "So, the test starts, now." As soon as the Uchiha matriarch said that, the girls vanished while Naruto stood there, already dialing 555 and pressing enter. Standing by, Naruto slid the phone into the slot in his belt and pushed it down. Complete. Naruto transformed into Faiz and drew the Faiz edge. He thought, they were all S-ranked shinobi and with Hitomi-sama, the 3 of them could take down cage-level shinobi in minutes. Even without Hitomi-sama, they still are strong, gotta be careful. I'll try using Excel form. Naruto took the mission memory from the SB555W Faiz Excel watch and slid it onto his phone. Complete. The chest plates moved onto his shoulders. But before he could press the trigger, Kushina and Makoto had ran beside him, swords drawn. Naruto smirked as he jumped up, evading the slashes from the 2 kunoichi. As he was airborne, he pressed the button. Start up. Time slowed down for him as Naruto quickly ran towards the 2 Junin and swung his sword, which was surprisingly blocked by Kushina's and Makoto's swords. During the 10 minutes, Naruto would land some cuts on the women, but some would be blocked by the instincts from their experiences. After the 10 minutes, the watch announced, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. Naruto became visible and was back in normal form. Kushina and Makoto smirked and charged, Makoto doing hand signs with Kushina, jutsu combination, Kaden, Sweden, Ryuden no Jutsu. They both shot out a fire and water dragon respectively as the dragons twirled around each other going straight for Naruto. Naruto smirked as he saw the dragons but made no attempt to dodge, which made every female present go wide-eyed as Naruto slid the mission memory into the hilt of the Faiz edge and pressed enter on his phone. Exceed charge. Energy gathered in the sword as it glowed red. Naruto then swung it at the dragon as a beam of energy ran across the ground and tore the elemental dragons to shreds as it continued down its path, towards a shocked Kushina and Makoto. Anime and manga. The beam hit as they were encased in the anti-gravity field. Naruto walked slowly as he dulled the energy in his blade, not enough to but definitely enough incapacitate a person, or two. As he reached them, he swung the blade 2 times in a cross, the energy flinging the two matriarchs away, hitting a tree and unconscious. Hinata, Hikari, Haruna, Yuki and Tasuki just looked in shock as their boyfriend just beat two of the strongest kunoichi in Konoha, even if they weren't going all out. After a while, the two women finally woke up. Naruto looked at them. Ka-san, why did you not use the Kaisha gear? Kushina said, it didn't come to my mind. Naruto shook his head and sighed, I wanted to see the Kaisha gear in action. And when I used the exceed charge, why the hell did you stand there? You could have evaded it. Is tearing through two elemental dragons so shocking to you? Kushina and Makoto nodded. Naruto face-palmed, and here I thought you'd stop underestimating me. Naruto continued his rant on how the two Junin could have countered him while the other girls just watch in disbelief over the fact that Naruto, a fresh genin, albeit one who is a famous band, beat the strongest Hokage using said Hokage's signature jutsu, telling off two seasoned kunoichi about how they could have countered his attacks. After a while, Naruto sighed, never mind, I believe you will have to report to two-san, right? They nodded as they vanished via Shunshin. Naruto then looked at the girls, so, anyone up for ramen? The girl's face faltered at the fact that Naruto acted like nothing happened after telling off two of the Sanshibo no Kunoichi. They got up as Tasuki said, can we have sushi today, please Naruto-kun? The other girls who wanted something other than ramen for once, with Tasuki, used the puppy eyes jutsu and Naruto instantly caved into the cuteness of 5 kunoichi and nodded before they headed for a sushi restaurant. With the Junin, Kushina and Makoto came into the Hokage's office as Minato said, good, everyone's here. So how did the teams do? Team 1 to 6 failed. Kushina and Makoto said together, Team 7 and 12 passed with flying colors. The girls did absolutely nothing as Naruto single-handedly defeated us just after the test started. Not unlike how he defeated you, Minato-kun, Hokage-sama. Most of the Junin's eyes widened. When Kushina and Makoto or Hitomi paired up, they could take down Jiraiya and Minato together. The fact that Naruto beat the both of them together right after the test started. They then thought whether Naruto's status as an A-ranked ninja was not enough to measure Naruto's skills. Minato nodded and motioned for the other Junin. Kurenai said, Team 8 passed. Asuma said, Team 10 passed. Kakashi sighed, Team 11 passed. I swear the Haruno family is some kind of Banshee descendant family. Sakura kept screeching about Kiba not obeying and I quote, her Sasuke-kun, as well as Sasuke berating Kiba about not obeying Uchiha greatness. Kiba had Akamaru attack me while I was distracted by Sakura's loudness and got the bells. I tied the other two up and told Kiba to eat the bento and told them they'd try again. I hid my scent and presence and the only reason they passed was because Kiba fed the both of them. So in short, only Kiba did something for the team to pass. Everyone then did a silent prayer for Kakashi as he had taken on possibly the worst team in history. After that, Minato said, okay, good job everyone. You're all dismissed. And Kakashi, good luck. Kakashi nodded sadly as they walked out of the office leaving Kushina, Makoto and Minato in the office. Makoto sighed, guess Sasuke still has that arrogance in him even though I got it out of Fugaku-kun. I'm gonna have to get Fugaku-kun to beat it out of Sasuke. Minato and Kushina chuckled at that as they pitied their friend for having to deal with that kind of stuff. With Naruto and the girls, Naruto was getting introduced to the wonders of sushi. I'm a sushi fan, and decided it was a food of the gods second to ramen. Now, Naruto was scarfing down plates of sushi from the sushi belt of the restaurant much to the horror of the chiefs as they had to work triple time and to the amusement of the girls as it was the first time seeing their boyfriend eating something that wasn't ramen at such a pace, occasionally drinking large amount of cold green tea due to too much wasabi. Just then, 5 rich civilian boys who were spoiled rotten by their parents came in. They noticed the girls and walked to them. Hello ladies, would you join us for lunch, our treat? The girls didn't bother to look at them as they continued eating with Naruto. The waiter saw this and got a bad feeling. The 5 civilian boys were well known among restaurant owners. They would notice pretty girls and try to flirt with them even if they were ignored, which caused trouble in the shops. The second guy said, "Why don't you ditch this idiot and come with us? Such beautiful ladies like you should be with us." Tsuki had enough and looked at them with cold eyes. "Living up to being an ice princess from the academy, pray tell, what status do you have that can triumph the status of our boyfriend here being an A-ranked shinobi at such a young age?" The other girls looked at the 5 boys as well, waiting for their answer as Naruto groaned inwardly and wanted to kick the 5 civilians for interrupting their lunch. The third civilian said arrogantly, "We are the children of," he was cut off by Hinata, who showed the cold side she rarely showed, "We don't care who your parents are. They are their own people, you're all just idiots living in their shadows. Now leave us alone." The fourth civilian, thinking that they wouldn't or couldn't do anything, said, "What if we won't leave?" Now, everyone in the restaurant was looking at them. Hikari was going to reply, but Naruto, who was getting tired of this, beat her to it. "Then I'll make you." Naruto stood up and looked at the 5 civilians straight to the face, and the boys were frightened to see Naruto's glowing eyes. The boys nodded and left quickly. Cheers erupted from within the restaurant as the 5 civilian boys were finally put down by someone. The keeper of the shop walked up to them and said to Naruto, "I thank you for that. They have been a pain to most of the restaurants. To show my gratitude, I'll give you a free meal here today." The group smiled as the shopkeeper went back to his counter. Later, the shopkeeper swore he would never offer a free meal to anyone ever again. Teams 7 and 12 successfully captured Tora for what seemed like the 100th time. Naruto held the cat as it seemed to dislike every other person in both teams. The cat always clawed at the girls whenever they tried to hold it. Now, the 2 teams were going to the Hokage Tower. They entered the office as Kushina reported, "Mission complete, Hokage-sama." Minato nodded and chuckled, "Kushi-chan, you seriously don't need to call me that." Kushina smiled at him, "But that would be favoritism, wouldn't it?" Minato nodded. Whenever Kushina had missions, she would address him as Hokage-sama, something that annoyed the man at first. Then, the daimyo's wife came in. Naruto gave her the cat as she crushed the cat with her vice grip. The cat tried everything it could to escape but failed. The girls of Team 7 and 12 all smirked evilly inwardly as they all had similar thoughts. "Suffer, you damn cat, you deserve it for trying to scratch us and get Oni-chan." Naruto-kun's attention. Minato, Kushina and Makoto could only sweat drop and sigh as this had been happening from during their time. Naruto noticed the problem and sighed, "Shijimi-sama, I believe I have found the reason to why Tora keeps running from you." Shijimi looked at Naruto and asked, "And why is that, may I ask?" Naruto replied, "If you would let me hold Tora for a moment." Shijimi complied and handed Tora to him. Naruto then started to pet Tora gently as it purred in his arms. "You see, the way you hug Tora is painful for it. I know you want to express your love to Tora, but it makes it feel afraid whenever you try to hug it. Tora loves gentleness, and if you handle Tora with care, it might not run away from you." Shijimi nodded as Naruto handed a reluctant Tora back to the daimyo's wife. Tora closed its eyes and waited for the crushing hug, but instead, it felt the gentle petting it loved to receive from Naruto. Shijimi was surprised as Tora became more relaxed in her hands and didn't try to run away. Shijimi smiled at Naruto and said, "I thank you for telling me of my errors. I'll pay double for this and you can expect more missions in the future." As the wife of the daimyo left, Naruto noticed the shocked looks from his parents, teammates, sisters, girlfriends, and Makoto. He asked, "What?" Flashback end. At first, Minato was happy and disappointed at the same time. Happy that Tora was gone from the mission rosters and disappointed for losing a good source of income. But that soon ended as he received higher ranking missions from the daimyo at the same rate he received the Tora mission, which meant the income of missions and money had increased a lot. Minato thanked Naruto 1,000 times for that and would have immediately promoted Naruto to Chunin if it wasn't for Naruto saying he wanted to take the exams with his sisters. Now, Makoto was talking with Kushina and Kakashi at a cafe. Kushina said, I think we should get a joint training session between the genin teams. Kakashi nodded, I think we should include Asuma, Kurenai and Guy's team. Give them some kind of interaction with future partners. Makoto nodded. Over the week Team 7 and 12 formed, she had told her husband about Sasuke's behavior and Fugaku gave Sasuke a beating session through a spar and scolded him after the spar. Sasuke accepted the scoldings but still didn't really change his attitude. Maybe this joint training session would help with that. Kushina then continued, okay then, we'll have a joint training session for the genin teams. Is tomorrow okay? Kakashi nodded, I'll tell Asuma and Guy. Kushina nay, you can tell Kurenai, right? Kushina nodded, so we'll meet at training ground 7 then. Makoto nodded as the Cyclops went off to tell his fellow Junin while Kushina and Makoto went to tell Kurenai. The next day, Naruto and his team were waiting at training ground 7. Then they saw Kiba, Shino, Sasuke, Ura, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Neji whom they knew from visiting Hinata at the Hyuga compound and 4 people they didn't recognize. Team 7 and 12 greeted Neji who greeted back, he then introduced his teammates, Lee and Tenten. Soon, Kushina, Makoto, Kakashi, Kurenai, Asuma and Guy appeared via Leaf Shunshin. Kushina said, okay, today you shall be having a team spar. Think of this as a training session. We'll now start with the spar. Your Junin sensei will determine whom you will fight. Kakashi looked at Kushina. Kushina nay, I think I'll have my team fight yours. Kushina nodded. Asuma looked at Kurenai. Kurenai-chan, I wanna make a bet with you. Kurenai raised an eyebrow, which is? Asuma smirked. If my team beats yours, you'll have to go on a date with me. The other Junin rolled their eyes at this. Kurenai smiled. Fine, but if you lose, you'll never get a date from me again, K. Asuma nodded. It was all or nothing. Guy looked at Makoto. I guess our teams will compete with their flames of youth. Makoto sighed and nodded. Kushina looked at the genin and said, so, there you have your opponents. So who wants to go first? Naruto looked at his sisters, girlfriends and nodded, we'll go first. Kushina nodded, the trees that are surrounding you are the limits of the ring. Everyone else will be watching outside of the tress. They all looked around and noticed there were tress making a circle. They nodded as the other teams left, leaving Team 7 and 11 with Kushina. Kushina said, so, this starts, now. Kushina then shunshin away. None of the teams moved. Naruto then heard Hikari's voice, Oni-chan, I'm using a link QB extended to you and don't talk out loud, just think the words to us. Now, Haruna-chan and I will take on the Banshee and the other guy while you fight Sasuke, is that okay? Naruto thought back, okay. Then, the 3 siblings jumped at Team 11. The team of idiots were surprised at the speed and barely dodged. Naruto slowly led Sasuke away from Sakura and the other guy. Haruna and Hikari were working together so well they dominated the battle. As if on cue, the same deep voice they heard occasionally from the academy was heard, dominating. Hikari kicked Sakura as Haruna jumped away from the boys' attacks, letting the attack hit Sakura who was just in the way. Sakura screeched, Sai Baka, watch where you're hitting. The boy known as Sai said nothing as he continued trying to fight Haruna. The Junin and Genin saw this and shook their heads. Kushina looked at Kakashi. Kakashi, don't tell me you never taught them anything. Kakashi replied, I did teach them. Makoto asked, which is? Kakashi replied, I taught them teamwork exercises, they had no teamwork. So I had to teach them that before they could learn anything else. Asuma chuckled as Kurenai sighed. In other words, if Naruto, Hikari and Haruna separate them, the match is already theirs. The Genin heard this and just watched on. They then focused on Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke kept punching and was dodged by Naruto. Sasuke yelled, I'll show you who is the strongest, and Haruna will forget about you. Naruto said nothing as he dodged. Soon, Sasuke started to get tired. Naruto smirked and held the Faiz edge up, doing 2 of the kenjutsu techniques he learned from one of his sensei from his travels. Naruto said, Amagiri Shinmei Ruken, 9-fanged longsword. Naruto then slashed several times, but he moved so fast he was practically a blur to everyone. Cuts appeared on Sasuke as he stumbled. Sasuke tachied and did a set of hand signs, Kaden, Karyu Enden. A large torrent of flames surrounded Naruto, who smirked and did another kenjutsu technique, Amagiri Shinmei Ruken, 10 thistles. He turned and slashed at the flames, completely dissolving them. Naruto then said, Amagiri Shinmei Ruken, 4 wasps. Naruto did stabs at Sasuke as more cuts appeared. Naruto then suddenly appeared behind Sasuke, but instead of stabbing the Uchiha like he was supposed to do with the technique, he used the hilt of the Faiz edge and hit Sasuke at the back of the head, rendering him unconscious. The Junin and Genin were wide-eyed at Naruto. The blonde had used the famous Amagiri Shinmei Ryu Kenjutsu style that was only known by the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shichinin Shu, so that would mean Naruto must have trained under one of them during his travels. This naturally got Tenten, who was a weapon fan, to go into fangirl mode weapon version. She practically had stars in her eyes as she saw Naruto did the kenjutsu techniques. After beating Sasuke, Naruto then rushed back to help Haruna and Hikari. Sakura saw Naruto and got mad. What did you do to Sasuke-kun, Naruto baka? Naruto said nothing as Sakura charged him, completely forgetting Hikari being behind her. Soon, Ura was beaten by the pair due to her foolishness. Sai was also soon beaten as soon as Haruna started using the Hiraishin. After that, the Junin and Genin went back in. The Uzumaki Namikaze siblings looked at Kakashi. Hikari then said, Kakashi ni, your team absolutely, positively S. This got snickers from the Junin and Genin as Kakashi just sweat dropped and sighed. Then the next matches started. Team 8 won against Team 10, the only important ones are Team 7 and 12. As Kushina yelled, Hajime. She jumped away, leaving Tasuki, Yuki, Hinata, Neji, Tenten and Lee. A dust ball that appeared out of nowhere rolled across in between the two teams, then they charged. Neji and Hinata went into a heated Juken match while the Uchiha sisters fought Lee and Tenten. Neji and Hinata matched strike for strike, which surprised Neji as Hinata had improved leaps and bounds from their last spar. None knew any of the advanced Juken techniques. Hinata then yelled, Hakeju Raku Sho. She sent a 16-combo Juken strike at Neji, who was too close to dodge and got a quarter of his Tenketsu shut down. Neji felt numb and found his right arm to be unable to use the Juken. So he settled to using his left hand. With the Junin and Genin, Guy was surprised as Hinata was beating Neji in Juken. Sasuke was talking with Kiba about the girls, to which made Naruto resisting the urge to give them a beating. Other of the Genin were interested on how Team 9 fought. As the Juken contest continued, Hinata then did something Neji never expected. She moved around in one of the Juken styles developed by her mother, something none of the other Hyuga succeeded. Even Neji, who attempted to learn from Hitomi, failed. Hinata slid around Neji in a serene movement that the watchers all thought she was dancing. Naruto found himself unable to take his eyes off her as he admired her movements. Neji found himself unable to keep up and was soon hit in the abdomen. He then fell unconscious. Imagine Wing Chun foot movements. With Tasuki, Yuki, Tenten and Lee, Yuki engaged Lee in a taijutsu match, which was in Lee's favor. Tasuki was fighting Tenten, who was throwing weapons while Tasuki was spamming some of the lower-ranking but destructive jutsu she knew, so the battle was in Suki's favor as the weapons did little effect. Soon, Hinata joined the battle and Lee was soon defeated. Yuki and Tasuki were now facing Tenten. They then did sets of hand signs, and yelled in unison, Futen, Daitapa Kaden, Gokaku no just you. The wind empowered the flames and knocked the weapons off course and engulfed Tenten, who couldn't take the heat and fainted. The match